G'day folks, and welcome to another episode of Podcraft. This is the show all about podcasting, from launching your show to monetization and everything in between, helping you to run a successful podcast. I'm Colin Gray from thepodcasthost.com, joined by Matthew. As always, how are you getting on, Matthew?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, Colin. How are you?
Good, yeah, not too bad, not too bad. We're just chatting away about some, you're being a bit practical this week, aren't you? Laying some AstroTurf on your lawn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, wee bit of fake grass, as I'm calling it, with the wee one. So, botching away on the cheap and just putting something down that I would say is functional rather than grandly aesthetically pleasing. So
getting out there and doing something practical, though, away from the desk, away from the microphone, and doing something useful for a change. Eh?
Yeah, it's always good to get out there and do something physical in the real world, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
indeed. But I mean, our topic for today, actually, the second part of our scale framework is quite real world. It's quite practical. It's quite getting out there because it's the C, isn't it? It's communities and collaboration. So it's getting out there and actually working with some other podcasters, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, whether you're laying AstroTurf together or just finding ways to cross-promote your podcast, I guess we could tie it in there, I suppose.
Nice link, yeah. Cool. So before we jump into that, I'll say we've been mentioning in the last few weeks, if you're looking for help to grow your podcast, you don't have to do this alone. Of course, we're here to help. We can help you with anything from launching your show to planning it to monetization to growth methods to get that audience growing as well. Everything as well, from courses up to group coaching to one-to-one individual coaching and packages as well. So if you want any of that kind of help, if you think you can work with us, go over to thepodcasthost.com/help. That's just thepodcasthost.com/help. And we'll get back to you with some options if you're looking for some of that help to grow your show. All right, Matthew, do you want to take us through this? So we've got communities and collaboration. Where are we going to start if we're going to start working with some other people out there to try and grow our show?
Yeah, if I think back to our podcast growth book, links in the show notes, of course, I think we used the phrase "growing your audience by knowing your audience." One of the best ways to get more listeners is to really look after and cater to the folks that are already listening, isn't it? So, I mean, a listener survey is a classic tactic on this front, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's nothing better than, I mean, it's a good line, a bit cheesy, but actually it's totally true. Like, you need to know your audience so well to be able to grow them. Because you need to know who it is you're searching for. You need to know exactly what their problems are, what they're looking for, what you can help them with. And all of that goes into your marketing, which is everything you put out there on social, on your blog, on the podcast, on YouTube, wherever it is you're promoting your podcast. The messaging, the titles, the descriptions need to be so tailored to the things that are going through that audience's mind. So yeah, that survey, what kind of stuff would you stick in that survey, Matthew? Is it mainly just questions around what they're struggling with? What kind of stuff do you include?
I mean, some of the gold comes from the question, how did you find the podcast in the first place? Like, I think if you start to notice a pattern there of people finding your show a particular way, that's a good sign that, you know, something you're doing or something that exists is working, and you could really lean into that. And on the contrary, like, I mean, say you've just spent quite a lot of money on some sort of advertising campaign and you don't hear from anyone to say that that's how they discovered you, then that's a good sign that you're wasting your money and you should spend it on AstroTurf instead. Yeah. So any questions that you've kind of swore by over the years when you've been putting these together?
Yeah, I do love that one. Yeah, absolutely. Like, where have you found this? And often you can find these secret little ones as well that you didn't really know about. Like, one person has come from a particular community, for example, or a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group or something like that, some random place that you didn't really think of before that you can then start to put a bit more work into. I mean, if you find that, like, you've got 5 people coming from Reddit, for example, and you've never used Reddit before, maybe it's time to get on there and actually create a little group for your podcast or something similar. But yeah, I love the way of using surveys just to kind of refine that messaging as well, though, and figure out the content. I mean, we're talking about, you're using your community for content research as well. We talked a bit about that last time, but asking that question, like, what are you struggling with just now? What can we help you with most? That's helping you create content, but equally, it's helping you're almost collaborating with your audience to actually create that content that they really want. And then that really ties into the SEO we talked about on the last episode.
Yeah, and surveys are, I mean, they're obviously tricky to get decent volumes of responses. It's just the nature of the beast. So I would say, like, if you're more early stage, if your show is newer and you've maybe not built up that audience just yet, that shouldn't put you off from running a survey. But I would maybe just do like an open survey and make it a call to action for, into the future, basically, rather than saying, this month we're doing the survey and then it closes. You could just have that survey. It's just ongoing. Whether that is your call to action or a dynamic ad or whatever. It's not like you're publishing this data. It's not like you're putting a report together. This is all for your own information. So there's no real need, unless you're incentivizing with a prize draw, there's no need to put a hard stop on things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can just run constantly, can't it? You get this feedback coming in and even tie into like a mailing list or something like that, like make it as a kind of entry point to other things that you send out on a regular basis. Another thing that's great in terms of collaborations is actually put the question in there. Do you create your own content? Do you create a podcast? Do you run a YouTube channel? Do you run a newsletter? Something like that. Like many of the people listening to your podcast will be interested enough in the topic you cover to actually create their own content around it. And then that leads to a collaboration. If they already listen to your show, they already know and trust you, and they're more likely to work with you, like whether it's an advert swap or a trailer swap or just like mentioning you and whatever it is they do in exchange for you doing the same for them. So just asking them, do you run your own content, and getting more detail on that can be really useful too.
Yeah, we've got a full guide to surveys. I'll stick that in the show notes. You know what I was boasting last week about me taking notes about the show notes? You know what I'm not doing? So give me just a second. Podcast growth book, surveys. Because we've got obviously we're running through these tactics. We're getting into them a wee bit, but they're whole subjects of their own, aren't they?
Yeah. Talking of which, number 2 we've got 8 ways of working with communities and collaboration. Number 2 is sell low-cost merch for visibility. This is a whole subject as well, isn't it? Running a merch store. But yeah, do you have you've done some good merch in the past, Matthew. What have you done to grow your show through merch?
Yeah, those beer mats that we did for ASP, they went down really well. Just stuck I think it was not even a 1-star review, a 2-star review on a beer mat, and went to a couple of audio drama events, and they were very popular. And we kind of replicated that in London a couple of years ago, didn't we? We got some Alitu ones made, I think.
Aye, we did. Yeah, we took our bad reviews, didn't we? Not that we've got many, Matthew, I'll point out, but we took some bad reviews. Like it was kind of the funny, misinformed ones, and popped them on beer mats, and they went down quite well. Yeah, we sort of spread them around the pubs that the socials were in at that event we went to. So that's a great way to connect with a community. You go to these events, you meet more of the community that's in your topic, your space, and if you can spread around some free merch, it always goes down well. But equally, I mean, just, t-shirts, like selling t-shirts to your community, then, helps to create more of a fan connection. It helps people connect more with your show. It helps people promote your show for you. So even just the standard stuff like t-shirts, mugs, stickers, all of that kind of stuff can do really well as well, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, ostensibly, merch is a monetization strategy, and it is, to an extent. But I think it's much more of a marketing strategy. Yeah. Like, let's face it, us indie podcasters, we're using print on demand, the vast majority of us. We're not going to retire on that. If you make a sale now and then, it's like a couple of quid here and there. So you need to reframe it and look at it as like, I'm just getting the podcast out there, I'm getting the brand out there, whatever. So I need to actually, a couple of funny stories there, not to dwell on it, but I was ordering those business cards for the London podcast show next week. So classic Vistaprint, I do await their 8,000 emails, but at the checkout, it tries to like upsell you. So it was like,
everything,
do you want this business card on a kettle? And I was like, not really, but thanks anyway. And then another thing I've noticed, one of the emails I keep ignoring but need to action, it's like TeePublic, which I've always used. They're changing to like, or they're not changing, but they want you to like set up your show in Dashery now, which is a separate platform, but seems to have like, I don't know if they've bought it over, but they're keeping the two different platforms. It's very confusing, so I'll need to look more into that.
What's Dashery, did you say? What's that?
I think Dashery was always just a TeePublic alternative, but now it's
right.
like, I don't know,
Kind of
it's
stuff,
like Dashery maybe acquired TeePublic, but they're keeping the TeePublic name, but they've got it's just, I don't know, it seems strange, but I'll look into it.
Separate thing.
Anyway, I'm sure the listeners riveted at that. So
yeah, just to explain, like if you haven't come across TeePublic, that's the one we use for our merch most often, because you can set it up, you upload your artwork, even just a logo. If you just upload your podcast artwork itself or the logo for your show, you can then get all sorts of stuff basically automatically made with that on it. So it's the kind of lowest version of doing merch, like just having your artwork on a t-shirt, when really if you're going to go into it properly, you want to make some custom stuff for t-shirts. Really, maybe it's like a catchphrase from your show, maybe it's like a picture of some of the characters, or I don't know, or the people, the hosts, whatever it might be. You can go a bit further, but yeah, TeePublic just makes it really simple, even if it's just the artwork, to get that printed on all sorts of stuff. Like you say, Matthew, it could be anything from mugs to kettles. I've never come across the kettle.
Business card on a kettle, a business kettle. And of course, the very famous T-shirt, I saw Uranus on Hostile Worlds.
Yes,
or
indeed.
I learned about Uranus or something like that.
Yeah,
David Alt assured me it's Uranus. But whatever.
No, it's not to us. I wore that one to a podcast movement for a whole 3 days. No, actually, I don't think I wore it for 3 days. That would get a bit stinky, wouldn't it? But at least a couple of days to get some attention, and got some good contacts out of that. It was good. All right, number 3. So we've got trailers. So another way of collaborating with people is to swap trailers with similar types of shows. So how would you go about that, Matthew? What's your approach to that?
Yeah, so I think very recently we talked about, like, have a trailer for your show, like a 30-second trailer, preferably. That is indeed a no-brainer for any podcaster. And then, if your peers in the same sort of topic as you have similar trailers, it's a great way to cross-promote and exchange audience, I suppose. So what I would do is go to Rephonics 3D tool. Again, links in the show notes, writing it down right now. So type in your podcast to Rephonics 3D. I think it's Audience. Is it Audience Finder or Audience Overlap, something like that? So that will just bring up all the different podcasts, that your listeners are also listening to, or they're kind of adjacent to. Mm-hmm. And you could start to look up a few of them and just reach out to them and, make your pitch, play a trailer on each other's episode. And it's a very low-hanging fruit for finding new listeners and helping somebody else out as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do a bit of work together and it creates some mutual benefit and all that stuff. And we have full guides to making trailers as well, don't we? It doesn't need to be anything too fancy. It can literally just be you pitching your show in a good way. Like the kind of level up from that is taking some good clips from your show and putting them together into a good 30-second, 60-second montage. But we'll pop a guide to all of that in our show notes. We've got a full article on how to put together a trailer, different ways to do it, different examples that should be useful to you. So yeah, pop over and have a look at that. Right, I was going to mention, you mentioned Rephonic. Just a last wee tip on that. One tool I really like for this is called SparkToro. So SparkToro, chuck that in the show notes as well. And it's a tool which helps you use social media and web searches and YouTube and podcasting as well to actually find related content. So you can type in your podcast, for example, you can search your podcast and then it'll show you all of the podcasts that people also listen to yours. Equally, you can see what social media accounts they follow. You can see what YouTube accounts they follow. You can see what blogs they read. So all you do is you put in your show and you try and get as much data there around the other stuff that your audience consumes as well. And they're really good examples of people that you can collaborate with. Just all sorts of great examples of people that are really associated with you and would be great audience overlap so that you can work with those people. And equally, you can type in more popular shows in maybe there's no more popular shows. Maybe you're the most popular show in your topic, but presuming there's other shows in your topic, search for them as well and do a bit of research around all of the different shows that make up the kind of network of your topic and the related topics as well. It can be a great way to find new ones. All right, number 4, Matthew, we have co-host or cross-publish episodes. This is a nice wee technique. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, once you've found those folks that you could do trailer swaps with, don't stop there, obviously. There's loads more opportunities for you to work together to create some really good content. Co-hosting, Colin has his show, I have my show. We cover same or similar topics. Sorry, I can't speak today. And we just put that episode out on both feeds, and we make it very clear that this is a co-hosted episode between our two shows. There was also a really good tactic we had recently, wasn't it? Was it Lauren? I'm forgetting names and everything.
I think it was Lauren and Ariel together.
That's right, yeah.
It was on the newsletter they collaborate on, yeah.
Yeah, what was their wee tactic again?
Yeah, they suggested, so instead of just doing that feed drop type approach where you could co-host, so you could do one together, put it on both feeds, or you do a feed drop, which is you take one episode from your feed and one episode from their feed, and you essentially swap them. You post theirs on yours and yours on theirs. But instead of just doing that, you could do the co-hosted or the feed drop type approach, but like cut it in half. So you do a co-hosted episode that's in two pieces, and you put one piece on their feed and the second piece on your feed. And that means that there's real incentive to go from one to the other. So either somebody on your feed hears the second part and they really want to hear the first, so they have to go to the other feed, and similar with the other side. So yeah, I thought that was a really nice idea.
Yeah, I really like that. Hadn't come across that at all before. Yeah. So really cool to hear an idea like that, and definitely well worth trying out. I would love to hear from anyone that's actually done that. It'd be a great wee case study to talk about. So please get in touch if you do try that.
Yep, definitely. And that was, just to give full names, that was Lauren Passell and Ariel Nissenblatt. They run a newsletter. Maybe we can put a link on that in the show notes too. But if you search either of their names, you'll find them. No worries, because they're both prolific creators. All right, what we got up next? Number 5, Matthew. Montage episodes.
Yeah, the old montage episode. So yeah, there's two ways to approach these. Like a montage episode, it could be listener based. That could be you soliciting voice questions from your listeners. But if we look at it more as a growth tactic, I see a montage episode as being a collection of different clips from different podcasters in the same space or niche as you. So again, we're using these contacts that were found for the trailer swaps, for co-hosted episodes. But this time I'm going to reach out to 5 or 6 podcast hosts and just ask them the same question, very topic dependent. Again, for me, the big Warhammer guy, what's your favourite paint range? And, 6 or 7 of these podcasters will record a clip and send it back, and I'll put the episode together. And then, of course, once it's out, I could let them know that it's out there. They're also getting to shout out their podcast. So, my audience are checking their shows out, and then you're hoping that they're going to share that out a bit, mention it on their episodes as well. So just a big win-win strategy if done correctly, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that. It's such a nice way to create great content too. Like it helps you in terms of the collaboration, because these people are hopefully going to help you promote that episode. You're going to get in front of their audience potentially, but it lends them a favor. Like it shouts out their podcast. It gives them more visibility. So, they're more likely to help you out with something in future, or maybe share some of your content. But it's actually just, besides all of that, it's just great content actually. Creates for a kind of standout, much more interesting episode, or not more interesting. That's unfair. Your episodes are always interesting.
No, they're not.
Interesting as in something a bit different, stands out from the average type of episode and just gives a wee kind of refresh, a wee something different just for one. So yeah, love that. All right, number 6 is seemingly quite old school method, Matthew. Is this still working? The good old guest blog post.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put this as high up as the other strategies that we've mentioned so far, but I also wouldn't write it off. Like, like we said last week, web traffic is still a thing. Like, it's still a good way to get eyes on your content. So, if there's another creator out there that has a blog, that's a working blog, it does pretty well, it's well known, then there's absolutely no harm in reaching out and saying, could I maybe write something for you? Again, that's going to be totally topic dependent, but as we always say with these things, you approach them with your pitch and you make it all about them and all about their audience and all about what you could create that their audience is going to benefit from. So I don't think this is it is an old tactic, but I don't think it's a redundant one. What's your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I was kind of being flippant there, but it feels like something that kind of died off, and it was partly because you get so many AI powered or just automated pitches these days. Like if you run a bit of content, no doubt you're out there like drowning under these invites for guest posts, which makes you think like the whole thing's just dead because it's just been ruined. But that's it exactly, isn't it, Matthew? It's like if there's somebody out there with a good blog, and it's relevant and its topic, the topic really crosses over with yours, then that is a really valuable place to appear. So absolutely no question, like do that. It's great to get on their podcast, collaborate that way, but I think sometimes it's even more valuable to get in the written word so that you're just there. People can find that via search. You're there like via SEO as well. There's a link there potentially to your content much more directly than through a podcast. So if you can get both, absolutely, really, really worthwhile.
Yeah, I was looking at my stats on my tabletop show just last night. So two episodes from like, I think it's 2021 and 2023. They were like the most downloaded episode. Well, barring my most recent one, like the downloads on them went really high. And I was looking at my stats, and the user agent, it was all browser based, and a bit of digging revealed like it was the blog post show notes that I'd created around these episodes are just ranking really well, and that is turning into plays. And I know that somebody hitting play in the browser isn't the best thing, if you like, because you'd rather they were subscribing in an app, but you don't know, like a lot of them are hopefully going and subscribing or following somewhere.
So it's more people consume more people consume your content. Absolutely. Like maybe it's just the starting point in the journey, isn't it? They find that, they play it, and hopefully they subscribe or they read some more, or they end up on your other channels, whatever it is. Completely.
What about reviews? Like, I don't know if this is maybe something you did particularly like with the mountain biking show back in the day, but if you were to review products or services or that relevant to your topic, can that be a growth tactic?
Totally can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a good collaboration. Number 7 in our collaboration list here. If you can, it's the same as working with other podcasters, really. It's just a different medium. It's product. So if you can find products that overlap with your topic, that your listeners already use, that they might be interested in, then that's great content to create. So yeah, with my mountain biking show, I had people sending me like a pair of shorts or a pair of shoes or, a new saddle, that kind of stuff. And it's stuff that I would have loved to have talked about anyway. My listeners are interested in those bits of gear. So it creates great content, but equally it's a collaboration with that brand, and that brand is happy to get in front of our audience, and therefore they're promoting that episode to their audience as well, whether it's their newsletter, their website, their social channels, whatever it is. So yeah, if you can get that relationship started up with a brand, it can be really powerful. And I mean, ideally that could be a brand deal. That's the kind of thing you could get paid for sure. But there's also value certainly in the early days, maybe before you have the numbers to really charge good money for it. You'd better really, rather than taking like 50 quid for a small sponsorship, maybe you're better getting yourself in front of their audience and doing it for free instead. So depends on the context. Do you think that's all right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was just thinking, we've seen this in the past. We write a lot of reviews at the Podcast Host, and obviously they're not always glowing reviews, but some of them are. There's some stuff that we really, really like, and when we publish those reviews, and we're genuinely passionate or enthusiastic about a product or a service, you do often find that the company, the folks running that, they want to share that because it's great marketing for them. So you often find yourselves maybe in their newsletter, getting mentioned in their content. So yeah, as long as it's coming from a place of sincerity, you're not just doing a lot of reviews saying stuff's great when you don't actually believe that, but that goes without saying, I like to think. But yeah, another great way to kind of get your show out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, cool. And last one, number 8 in our communities and collaboration is the old classic, but it still works if you do it well, is to get on other shows, really, isn't it? Pitch to be a guest on other shows. So don't need to go too deeply into this. You all know how it works. But do you have any particular tips on that, Matthew, that kind of stand out beyond? Like what would you say to people that want to pitch to be guests on other shows in terms of making it work well for them?
Yeah, one of the things I've always said is just to reach out with some media other than text. Like we all get the emails, the generic emails from folk. But if you really want to be on a show for the right reasons, and you reach out to them, whether it's a 30-second video or audio clip, they're much more likely to actually notice that first and foremost. And then, there's a lot they could make decisions on the spot. Does this person sound good? Do they sound genuine? I think it's much more likely to be seen or heard. And in turn, it's much more likely to have its desired outcome, which is you actually getting on the show. What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Much more likely. And the other thing I often tell people is go a little bit of the extra mile to do the prep. Like so many times when people go on other shows, like you guest, you basically hand over control to the host. And you rely on them to make you look good, to get all of your knowledge out of you, to surface your best stories, your best content. But, half the time that doesn't happen. Like it doesn't necessarily, just because somebody has a show that they run, they do an interview show, even if it's a popular one, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get the best out of you. So do that work to prep with them. I sometimes think of this as at least the minimum is to set up one set piece part of the content. And that means like one bit of content, one insight, one lesson that you tend to teach that goes over really well, like one of your best things. Often this can be like something maybe slightly controversial, or not necessarily controversial, but different, a unique viewpoint. Contrarian, that's a good word for it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, some contrarian viewpoint that you have that you can teach people and give them a real, how to. And what I think of in this kind of set piece is to send over to the host, like, here's a story or a lesson or whatever it is that I often find goes over really well with the audience. And here's like 3 or 4 or 5 questions that you can use to kind of draw this out of me so that, I can relay this 5-minute lesson, 5-minute set piece without a big monologue. Because that's what you want to do. You want to set up the conversation, don't you? So if you give them some guidance on what this story or set piece looks like, they can then make it much more conversational, getting it back out of you. So I often like to set that up as a minimum, but there's much more you can do too. We've got a good article on this as well, actually, how to prep to be the best podcast guest your other podcast interview has ever had. So we'll pop that in the show notes too. You've got a big list here, Matthew.
I do. It's an ever-growing list, yeah. No, but loads of great resources, obviously, so be sure to check those out once you're finished listening. It looks like we'd probably have time to get into the A of scale, wouldn't we? So we've covered S, we've covered C. What's next?
Yeah, so A is advertising. So we have SCA, A for advertising or paid promotion in general. This is really one for people who have a bit of a budget, isn't it, Matthew? So do you think this is like mostly people who, well, either you start a pod and you've got a bit of budget to promote it, but often this comes down to people who have started to monetize a little bit. They've got like $50, $100 coming in from a Patreon or some sponsorship, and they want to invest it back into advertising. That's often the case, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would say, if you want to start paying for advertising, one of the things you really want to have in place is a semi-decent back catalogue, a semi-decent sized back catalogue of, I would say, at least 25 episodes, because you're wanting a good bank of content there for people to get their teeth into. Otherwise, I think maybe you do, if you have 3 episodes, you could pay and get those episodes listened to, but is it enough to hook those folks? So give them a good bit of content to binge. I think that's better spent money that way. So what
I was going to say, you also want to make sure that you're, probably in your first 10 episodes, you're still honing your idea. You're still researching like who exactly your target audience is, like what exactly they're looking for. Like we talked earlier on in the C section about listener surveys, to get to know your audience more, to see really what they want from you. And often it takes till like episode 15, 20, even 30 or 40 to really kind of hone that down. So if you're putting money into advertising, you really want to know you've got that nailed down. You want to know you've got your audience nailed down, the problem you're solving. You want to know the funnel is in place so that as soon as they find your podcast, you know that you've got it, it's honed to attract them and keep them and retain them as listeners. So yeah, I would say it's definitely a wee bit of a later stage one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that funny paradox where like every single podcaster, when they release their first episode, they wish 10,000 people would hear it. And then, by episode 50, they're really glad 10,000 people didn't hear it. So, this is certainly not one for just coming out the gate. But what are some actual strategies that the listener could try if they do want to put some money towards this?
Yeah, we've got 3 core ones here in the scale framework, don't we? So number 1 is adverts on the standard kind of outlets. So whether it's social or whether it's search. So running ads in Google, on Facebook, on Twitter, anything like that. Or you can also actually run ads in some of the podcast listening apps as well. So this depends a lot on your audience, doesn't it, Matthew? It's like you'll know more where your audience hang out. Like if you're much more of a kind of hobby or leisure podcast, maybe that's Facebook. But if you're more of a business podcast, maybe actually it's putting money into LinkedIn ads. Or if it's like a real how-to type thing, maybe that's then search. It's like Google ads because people are actually typing into Google like how to start a podcast, for example. You've got more experience with working with the podcast apps as well. Like, can you talk that through a little bit?
Yeah, we did one back in the day with Overcast. I was pretty happy with it. I see that, Podcast Addict and Pocket Cast, they have advertising options as well. What I really like about this is like 100% of the people you're reaching are actively, not just podcast listeners, but they're literally in a podcast listening app right now.
Right
like you couldn't get any more prepped than that, and with a couple of clicks, they're not only listening to you, but they're maybe subscribed or following as well. The prices do tend to be higher. You're probably going to need $300-400 for this. And when you maybe, when you break it down to, let's talk about like acquisition per dollar or whatever, you might find that's quite high. And in a lot of cases for like, a hobby or passion project podcaster, maybe the economics don't quite fit. But if you're selling a product or service that's pretty high cost, you might look at that as, okay, it cost me $4 to get this listener, but the thing I'm selling is like $1,000 or whatever. So, if I could convert them, that is worth it for me. So again, you just have to weigh that up. What is my budget? What's my call to action? What am I trying to do here? In a lot of cases, it's going to be a wee bit too much money, but I think for some folks, it's a really good fit.
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things about the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the LinkedIns is you can actually you can tailor it to your budget. So you can cut down the budget to, you can do just 10, 20, 30 quid a day. A month is where I was going there actually. So even if you've only got like 50 quid coming in from your Patreon a month, you can, put half of that, 25, towards some adverts just to capture some of those searches on Google or some of those people on Facebook. And similar in terms of tailoredness as well. Like you're talking about the podcast apps, they're all prepped. They're definitely listeners. Like with something like Facebook, you can use their audience graph to narrow down to people who have said, I'm interested in podcasts. So I listen to podcasts, plus I'm interested in mountain biking. So I've got there a group of people who I know listen and are interested in my topic. And therefore, hopefully they're pretty good candidates to convert into listening to my show. So yeah, that targeting can be really, really strong.
What about if we want to spend some money advertising our podcasts, could we just like literally sponsor another podcast that was, of the same audience, if you like?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, number 2 in advertising, is exactly to sponsor other people in your niche. And I like this more because equally, it has kind of similar to what we were talking about before. It's definitely listeners. They definitely listen to podcasts and they're definitely interested in our topic because they've subscribed to another Warhammer podcast or another mountain biking podcast. But so we know that targeting's there and we've got a good chance of capturing them. But the other side of it is actually just sponsoring and supporting other content creators in our area. Actually, I'd rather put the money towards another podcast that does mountain biking stuff compared to giving Google another 25 quid or whatever. Does that reflect your thoughts as well?
Totally. And you'll also find, maybe it's not an out and out sponsor with another show, but, say a podcast that you like, and again, they've got a similar audience in yours. If they have a Patreon or that, a lot of these Patreon tiers or crowdfunding tiers, they do involve getting a mention on the podcast. So, say I want to support another show and they'll maybe have like, what do you want shouted out? And you could just add, here's my podcast, here's the link. I think your listeners would really like it. Here's an episode we did recently that's very relevant. So you get a wee shout out that way. If that option's open to you, it's worth looking at as well.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff. Okay, and last one is hopefully another thing that will make you feel good because it's about supporting other people in your niche, which is relevant charities or causes, isn't it, Matthew? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, I mean this is much less transactional, but if there is a charity or a cause that again is very adjacent to your topic and it's something you're passionate about, maybe you went through a certain illness and there's a charity or an organisation that is set up to help people with that, you could just look at ways to closely link up with them to support them. You could offer to create content for them, or you could interview the folks at that organisation, and in turn, again, it's not like you could say, and in return, I want you to share out my podcast and that, but they probably will. You're helping them, you're shining a light on them, and often organisations are going to reciprocate as well. So I think this is definitely something to consider if your topic's a good fit for it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just an exchange of value, isn't it? Like, we're going to give back to the charity, to the cause, and they'll most likely be happy to share your podcast as well. Especially because, podcasts are free things. It's not like you're asking them to promote a product that you're going to make direct money out of or something like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's free content that people can consume. So yeah, usually that's very fair. Now, we've got full guides on pretty much all of these, don't we, Matthew? We've got a full guide on running ads on social and Google and the like. We've got one about podcast ads. So loads of materials for you to follow up on if you want to see the real how-to on how to do advertising for your podcast. So I'll stick that in the show notes as well if you want to follow up on that. Well, that'll do it for this episode, Matthew. That's the C and the A out the way. We've just got the L and the E to go.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. This is stuff we look at all the time, but sometimes just to take a moment to talk through it again, you realise just how many different things you can be doing to grow your show. If you're feeling a bit down now and then about your numbers maybe plateauing, or you just don't feel like you're making progress, there's loads you could be doing, and a lot of it is free. You obviously pay in your time, but don't try and do all of these at once, obviously, but try and set aside some time to think about what 1 to 3 things here could I maybe look at doing over the summer, and just see how you get on with it.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Pick the one that suits you. There'll be some that suit your strengths. So if you're a perennial networker, a real extrovert that goes out there and meets lots of people all the time, then there's a few in there in the communities and collaboration that'll no doubt suit you a lot. But if you're on the other side, you're really into stats and metrics and honing and refining something, then ads actually can work really well. Like, you can do small courses on just Facebook ads, for example, and maybe a 20, 30, 40 pound budget actually will go really far in attracting new people to your show every week if you're kind of on top of that and you know how to refine it. So choose the one that suits you, choose the budget of time and money that you have, and jump on it. Yeah. So next couple of weeks, we've got L&E. Like I said, we've got live and in person next time round. So that's about events and kind of more in-person communities, isn't it, Matthew? And then the last one we've got is email and engagement. So how you use email and other engagement methods as well to really find more people to listen to your show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that. But it's been an enjoyable wee mini-series so far. So really appreciate the listener following along, and hopefully you're getting some benefit from it too.
Yeah, it's been good fun. Yeah, absolutely. And as always, if you follow along, we really appreciate you supporting our content through the other stuff we do. So what we've mentioned before, we run Alitu. Alitu is our podcast maker app. So if you do make your podcast, which hopefully you do, hopefully you're out there and launched, but even if you're just launching as well, Alitu is designed to make it as easy as possible to do call recording built right in, audio cleanups built right in. You've got audio editing in there too, both text-based and waveform based. So you can do a bit of the broad strokes and text, and then do the detail of the audio editing in your waveform. And then we've got publishing in there too, podcast hosting, all included. So go and check out Alitu. That's over at alitu.com. That's alitu.com. And again, if you're looking for help with any of that, we can help. We've got our coaching, we've got our courses, all of that stuff. If you just get in touch via thepodcasthost.com/help, that's thepodcasthost.com/help, we can direct you to the right place and see how we can help you.
Yeah, I'll send you a business kettle.
A business kettle as a reward for anyone who signs up for the £100,000 package, because kettles don't come cheap. Only the biggest customers. Business kettle. What even is that? Yeah, I'm going to have to go and have a look at that now. Okay, cool. Thanks, Matthew. That was good fun. And thank you out there for listening. We'll talk to you next time on Podcraft. See you then.